Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic week. My name is Tim Immel with Beckstone Partners, and here today, happy to have him. We have Jordan Shepard on the line as well. You want to say hi, Jordan?
Hey, guys.
So what we're going to do tonight, we're going to try to get through this as quick as possible, but we do have a lot of information, and I know a lot of people, they have kids to be fed, activities going on. It is still summertime. We're going to try to cruise through this as soon as possible, get you through there. But there's so much valuable information and so much going on in the economic climate today that we really want to get your information fed. And of course, Jordan, myself, my team, his team, everybody's going to be available. You're going to have all of our contact information, ways to get a hold of us and get those questions answered. Generally speaking, it's a lot easier just to watch the webinar, take notes. And again, I'll say this a couple times throughout. Make sure you take notes with your questions because we will follow up with you and we'll have a discussion. And a lot of times people get surprised at some of these questions that they do write down and think they might be goofy. They're not. Any question you have, please shoot, because more than likely, if you have that question, someone else will have that question. If something's not working, please let us know. But I'm going to get this started. I'm going to pass this over. We're going to have Jordan start this off with us here today, and he's going to pull up his slides, and then he's going to circle back and hand it back over to me. A little bit premature to football season, but we'll get that handoff going. But right now, he is your quarterback. So, Jordan, you should have it, and you should be good to go on your end.
Okay, so I'll show my screen. Okay, so we should be good. Hopefully everybody can see that.
Okay.
So my name is Jordan Shepard. I'm the CEO of a company called Checkbook IRA. We specialize in setting up structures that essentially give checkbook control to clients so they can take their retirement money and go do different investments that are outside the stock market or inside the stock market if they want as well. The last webinar that I did with Tim, it was a kind of a general just overview of kind of introducing the concept of self-direction and how that might look. And so this one, because we've had so many clients come back and want to do another webinar with Beckstone, on this one I'm going to be going into the actual details of what a purchase of property would look like with a structure like this. We're going to go through the IRA LLC and then also the solo 401k. And then we'll also be talking about how it looks like, when you finance property, because that's part of what Beckstone is doing. So we'll start out with the IRA LLC. I won't spend a whole lot of time on how it's set up or why you do it, but hopefully you'll kind of get the gist as we go through it. But to set up an IRA LLC, you open a self-directed IRA at a self-directed custodian. This is a custodian that will let you invest outside the stock market. They're set up to do that. After you set up the IRA, you transfer into that new IRA whatever funds that you're wanting to work with, from other IRAs, 401ks, pensions, that sort of thing. While that's being done, we come in and we set up a limited liability company in whatever state you want. You are the manager of that LLC, and then your IRA is the owner. And after all that's done, you take the money that's been transferred into your self-directed IRA, you move that into the LLC, and the whole idea of this is that you're wanting to cut the custodian essentially out of the investments that you're doing, because if you didn't have the LLC, you'd have to go through the custodian for everything that you want to do, and especially for real estate, that gets really sticky and time consuming and also can add up as far as fees go. So the whole idea here is to get the funds out into the LLC so that they're still IRA funds, still tax exempt, but you get to control those funds as the manager of the company. So going through, the steps of, a normal real estate transaction, and if any of you have bought property or bought property, especially through an LLC, a lot of this is going to look pretty familiar, and that's the nice thing, that it's like buying property through any other LLC. There's no real special steps, but the first thing is obviously to put the property under contract or make an offer. Now, the thing to keep in mind here as we go through this, that the LLC is the investment entity that obviously you control and that you're investing out of. So anything that you do is always going to be in the LLC's name. Whether you're buying property or making loans or whatever it might be, It is the LLC that is doing this thing, and so you're always doing it in the LLC's name. So the first thing would be, when you do a contract or put in an offer, you have to make sure that the offer or the contract is being made in the LLC's name, not your name. Now, obviously, an LLC is not a person, so it can't sign for itself, and that's why you sign as the manager of the LLC. Earnest money, you can obviously put earnest money down, no issue with that. The only thing here is because you're dealing with retirement money, you are prohibited from commingling your personal funds with the retirement money. That's one of the most important things to understand. And so in this case, if you did have to put some earnest money down, just make sure that that comes from the LLC and not from you personally. I mean, I cannot, you see, I have it, underlined and capped and all that. Never, never, never use personal money there. Now, the particulars of pre-closing, that's just an example of something like, you might need to do an appraisal at the last minute, or maybe get an inspection of the foundation for termites or something like that. Those particulars of the pre-closing stuff, who pays for that, that's really between you and who the seller is. If you can get the seller to pay for some of that stuff, great. But if it turns out that you're responsible for paying for some or all of those pre-closing things, again, just make sure you're using the LLC's money and not your personal money. Now, some of you are going to be buying property just outright, just with cash, and so you're not going to be financing property. But the reason we're going to go through this is because Beckstone has, they have a lender that they're already working with, and so that's part of the nice thing about what they're doing, is that you don't have to go out and get your own non-recourse loan. They've got it handled for you. But there are a couple of special things with non-recourse loans, or rather with loans that are made to retirement accounts. There's some special rules that surround that. So let's just go through those real quick. Now, again, everything is done in the LLC's name, so the loan is not being made to you. The lender is loaning the money to the LLC. Now, secondly, the loan has to be what's called a non-recourse loan. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's just a loan without a cosigner and with no personal guarantee. So when a lender loans on a non-recourse basis, it means that the underlying asset, in this case, the rental property, is the only recourse that the lender has if the loan goes bad, right? So they can't come after you personally or to the LLC. All they do is take back the property, and that's it. Now, the reason why that's the case, just so you guys know, is there is a specific prohibition in the code that specifically prohibits you from extending your own credit to your own IRA or 401k. So if a loan is being made to your retirement account, you are not allowed to co-sign that or personally guarantee it. So that's the reason why anytime you see anything involving loans to retirement accounts, you're always going to see this term, which is non-recourse. Now, obviously, the lender is going to take a mortgage or deed of trust out, depending on where the property is, to secure their loan. And typically, for those of you who maybe have done some research on this, with non-recourse loans, the lender typically is going to want a little bit more down than normal. So somewhere between 25 and maybe as much as 40%, just depending on the situation. Now, this last point here is something just to mention. For those of you that are going to be investing in real estate and financing property with an IRA structure, whether it's through what we're talking about here with the IRA LLC or just a regular old self-directed IRA, just be aware that if you finance this property, you are going to be subject to what's called the unrelated debt finance income tax. It's a mouthful, but basically it's a tax that applies specifically in this case when a retirement account receives a loan. Now, it's not nearly as bad a deal as people think, because you're not even taxed on the IRA money itself. You're actually taxed only on the profits that were made with the lender's money, right? So even then, it's only a portion of your profits. And if you have a good CPA, I'm sure Tim maybe will talk a little bit about this, but if you have a good CPA, there are a lot of things you can do through depreciation and write-offs to get that number down pretty low. And the bottom line is it's not that bad anyway. It's always a net gain, because after all, you're making money off of someone else's money. So it's, don't let that term scare you. The only other thing I'd mention in this case is that Beckstone has done a really good job fast tracking this process. And what I mean by that is, one thing that a lot of people won't tell you about non-recourse loans is that they can be kind of hard to get. I mean, yeah, there are banks out there that do it, but a lot of times it takes at least twice as long, sometimes 3 times as long to get through all the process of, all the term sheets and back and forth with the bank to where you can finally actually go close on the property. And Beckstone having a lender already set up, that is a major, major plus. And again, Tim can kind of expand on that, but instead of it taking 3 months to get through the loan process, these guys are closing in like 48 hours. So that's definitely a plus. So now, assuming that all that is done, as far as the term sheet from the bank and you've got a lender in place and everything's good to go. Now, when you come to closing, let's go through the documents you would need to bring if you have an IRA LLC. So since, again, the LLC is the purchasing entity, the closing attorney is going to want to see the filed articles of organization for that LLC, which is kind of like the birth certificate of the LLC. It's issued by the state that the LLC was formed in and shows that the LLC does actually exist, that it is an entity recognized by the state government. They just want to make sure you're not floating in with some fictitious LLC that doesn't exist. So they want to see that. They're also going to ask for the operating agreement, which is a private document. This is not filed with the state. It is simply the internal law of the LLC. It spells out who the owner is, who the manager is, what the rights of the owner and the manager and the powers and so forth. So all that's contained in the operating agreement. We obviously do that for clients when we set up the structure. And of course, they're going to want the tax ID number for the LLC and possibly for you to complete a W-9. Now, one quick side note, for any of you that have IRA LLCs, just be aware that filling out a W-9 is a very, I guess, anti-intuitive. It's not filled out the way you would probably think it's filled out. So if any of you need help with that, even if you're not a client, somebody else sets you up, send me an email when we get done with this. You'll see my email. And I'll be happy to send you a sample on the way that it's supposed to be filled out. Whoops, there we go. So now when you get to the actual closing, when it comes time to sign everything, again, for those of you who have bought property, a lot of these forms are going to look very, very familiar, because this is what you would get with any closing for pretty much any property. You got your title transfer agreement. Again, the property is titled in the LLC's name because it's the purchaser. You got your closing disclosure, which is the old HUD one. Mortgage, if you're financing it, obviously you're going to have a mortgage or deed of trust agreement. Title insurance and those kinds of things, again, those are expenses that need to be taken on by the LLC, not by you personally. And when you get through all that stuff, obviously being the manager of the LLC, you're going to go ahead and sign all those documents. And then as far as delivering funds, I mean, however you want to do it, most of the time they're just going to want either a bank wire or a cashier's or certified check. Once you get the thing bought, then it kind of depends on whether you're going to have a property manager or not. If you're not going to have a property manager, then the way this would look is your renters, since the LLC is the owner of the property and it's titled to the LLC, they're just going to make their rent checks out directly to the LLC. And if they want, they can direct deposit them. If not, you can show up and grab the check, or they can mail them to you. However they want to do that, or you want to do that is certainly fine. But you just deposit those funds directly back into the LLC's account. And that's just rental income that's coming back to the LLC off of an asset that it owns.
Hey, Jordan.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, can we just talk real quick about how appropriate, though, the no property management is riding the line of sweat equity being involved with the deal, and how, if somebody does decide to self-manage the property, this is just accepting the checks. This isn't getting in there. Tenant calls you, you don't go there and fix items yourself. You don't go in there and do this. I mean, that's a huge caveat to everything that we do within IRS compliance. Having the third-party property manager, just staying is out of that gray area with the property management, especially in your own backyard. I mean, that's a huge red flag to the IRS when they see, okay, Bob Smith, his LLC owns a property in his own backyard, and he doesn't have a management company, and it's within his retirement account. And that's something we've seen, people go through before where they've been through audits due to property being in their backyard. They thought it was okay to manage. And yes, they did go there and, fix some items and essentially benefit their plan.
Yeah. So, and that's why I had some stuff here about, you not, so even if you don't, or sorry, even if you don't have a property manager, what you have to understand is that your role as the manager of the LLC and the LLC owning the property really does have to take a very passive role. So that would be, again, picking up a check or, something like that. What you do not want to be doing is, like Tim said, putting any sort of sweat equity into the property. You don't want to be, fixing the roof or putting on a tool belt and painting half the outside of the property, because you're not allowed to deal with your own retirement plan. So you're not allowed to buy anything from it, sell anything to it, or have any other deal or transaction that occurs between you and the IRA LLC. So if you start doing a bunch of work, you crawl up on the roof and put a new roof on, you're in a weird position because, number one, you can't pay yourself, because if you did, that's self-dealing and that's a prohibited transaction. But on the other hand, you can't not pay yourself because now you've gifted your labor to your own IRA, and that's a no-no. Typically, the IRS looks at that not necessarily as a prohibited transaction, but certainly as an excess contribution. And depending on the severity of the situation, they could certainly treat it as a prohibited transaction. So what I would say is this: for anyone who owns properties through an IRA LLC, and if you don't have a property manager, that's not necessarily bad. It just means that you should be very clear and distinct on where the boundaries are of what you can do and what you can't do with property, which is pretty much you can't do anything with the property, just minimal, just kind of management stuff of, like I said, if you have to go pick up a check or something like that, or maybe, run over and give the key to a tenant, or they're locked out and you have to let them in. I mean, that sort of thing is fine. But as soon as you start actively managing these, where a toilet goes out and you're the one that goes out and fixes it or something, that's where you cross the line and you're going to run into major issues. So it's not necessarily bad not having a property manager, but like Tim said, I mean, it certainly would be more of a flag, I guess, if the service ever came in and looked at what you were doing. They would probably then say, okay, well, we think maybe you're gifting your labor to the LLC, so we want to see, for everything that's been done on this property, any repairs, we want to see invoices out to separate contractors who have done that work to ensure that you're not doing the work. So it does kind of put the onus more on you, where you almost have to prove that you're not doing this stuff. And that's a good point that Tim makes. But again, just to make the point that, if you understand that you're not supposed to be working on these properties, you really are in a better position if you do use a property manager. But if you don't, just understand where that line is and then make sure you don't even get close to that line. So now we get to the next one. I wanted to do both, kind of, so you could see how both work. But if you did use a property management firm, and this wouldn't even have to be an actual company. I mean, it could be a friend of yours who maybe does some managing on the side or something like that. Now, with what Tim is talking about, of course, one of the advantages is that they offer management services for, their properties. So obviously he'll talk more about that. But in this case, all you've got is the LLC owns this property now, and it's going to enter into a contract with the property management firm that says whatever it says based on what you and they agree to. And that's pretty much it, right? So the particulars of that agreement are going to state probably that the rental or the property management firm will take in the rents, put them in escrow, pay any expenses, and then go ahead and cut a check out to the LLC. That's typically how it's done. So really nothing different here. Just because you have an IRA LLC, it's going to be all pretty much the same. So now let's go through what it looks like with a solo 401k. Now, a lot of this is going to be pretty much the same because the process really is not that different. It's just that you're using a different entity. And so there are going to be a couple of changes there. So again, just real briefly, just a thumbnail sketch on the 401k. If you have any sort of self-employment income, whether it's a full-time thing or whether it's just something on the side that you do, maybe you play music on the weekends or you ref for Little League or something like that. Maybe you have a couple thousand in self-employment income, even as low as that. And so long as you don't have any outside, or sorry, any full-time W-2 employees that work for you, you can set up and sponsor your own, what's called a solo 401k. And the 401k is more flexible than IRAs, just because it's a different animal, but there is one major difference between the two. And that is, and you can see it here where it says you as trustee, unlike with an IRA where you cannot be your own custodian, you have to hand your IRA to a third party custodian, they hold your IRA, and then if you want to get checkbook control, you've got to slide this LLC into the mix. You could almost say that the LLC is the mechanism that gives you checkbook control. Now with the 401k, it's a different deal. Again, it's a different animal, different rules. So when you set up the 401k, you actually get to be your own custodian. And the word here that we would use is not custodian, but actually trustee, but it's the same thing. And there's kind of a trickle-down effect from that, because now you have no third party involved in the plan, period. That's just you. You don't have anybody that you're having to pay transaction fees to or fill out a form and ask permission to do this and that and the other thing. So it really frees you up in the sense that you just don't have to deal with that. The other thing it does is you don't necessarily need to set up an LLC, because unlike with the IRA where the LLC, you have to have it to have checkbook control. With the 401k, you're already in control to begin with because you're the custodian. So you've already got checkbook control of the actual 401k. So you could certainly set up an LLC maybe for other reasons, but you don't need to set up the LLC for checkbook control. So you can see that this looks pretty much the same. The only thing that's changed is the type of entity, right? So a 401k is a trust. It's a very special kind of trust because it's got to be recognized under a certain section of the code to have tax exemption and blah, blah, blah. But it is, in its essence, simply a trust. And of course, you are the trustee of this 401k trust. So when all the plan documents are done, just so you know the way that looks, you as the trustee of the 401k trust go and open a checking account in the 401k trust name. And it is to that bank account that you roll your money into from other, retirement accounts. It is to that bank account that you make future contributions if you choose to do that. And then it's also that bank account that you operate out of, send bank wires out, deposits coming in. So the only thing that changes here, everything is the same except for the fact that instead of using an LLC, the purchasing entity is now a trust. And by the way, you can name your 401k whatever you want. There are no restrictions on what you can name it. So the name would be whatever you want. So on the contract, the offer, you'd put down that it's in the trust name, that's the offer. You would go ahead and sign everything now as the trustee. Same thing. If you need to put down earnest money, that's fine, no issue, obviously, but make sure it's paid by the 401k, not by you. And same thing with the pre-closing stuff. Whoever ends up paying for that is fine. Just if it ends up being you, just make sure that you pay it from the 401k. And same thing with a non-recourse loan, except for just, again, a couple of differences. Obviously, one is that the loan is now being made to the 401k trust, not an LLC. Still has to be non-recourse because you still have the same prohibitions on extending your credit to the 401k to back up the loan. Can't do that, so still has to be non-recourse. Same process, they still take out a mortgage on the property to protect their position. The only difference is, and this is a big one, this is the last one, that unrelated debt finance income tax that I was talking about does not apply to 401ks for financed real estate transactions. So whereas with the IRA, you'd have some tax to deal with and depreciation and stuff to kind of figure out there, all that goes out the window with the 401k because you're now holding this property in an account that's literally not even subject to that tax for what you're doing. So that's a definite plus. Now, the documents needed at closing are going to be a little bit different because, again, you're not using an LLC, which is a state-created entity, which means that you have to show up with proof that the LLC was actually filed with the state and accepted by the state and is on the public record and all that sort of thing. With a trust like this, the 401k trust is not a state-created entity, right? So it's not a business trust or anything like that that you have to file with the state. This is a private trust. And so the only document that's relevant here is the underlying trust document that then defines, what is what and who can do what. But to keep you from having to drag your plan documents all over the place, because let's face it, if you take that stuff into a closing, they're going to have no idea what they're looking at. And more importantly, they're not going to be able to extract from those documents what they need to close on the property, the titling and the name and all that stuff. So what you do is you take in what's called a certification of trust or a certificate of trust or a memorandum of trust, right? It's all the same thing. But all that is just simply a one or two, ours is a 2-page certification of trust, but it's really just a 2-page abstract listing of all the relevant information of the trust, right? So the name, the address, the tax ID number, who the trustee is, the powers of the trustee, tax ID number and all that sort of stuff. And so now, instead of having to drag your documents all over the place, you just walk in and slide this 2-page statement essentially across the table, and everything that they need is right there, including titling info. And we'll get into that because that's a little bit special. And then also possibly you might need to fill out a W-9 if there's any sort of reporting that might need to be done. And also, look, if you have a solo K, again, even if we didn't set it up for you, if you need help with that W-9, just let me know and I'll send you a sample of that. So, again, same thing with the actual closing. I mean, all the same documents, no different here. The only thing that's going to be different really is the titling of the property. Now, going back to the IRA stuff, when you're buying the property through the LLC, well, that's simple. They just title it to the LLC and that's it. When you're using a trust, though, because technically with a trust, what's really happening is the trustee is holding title to the asset on behalf of the trust and then also the beneficiary of the trust. So what they do typically with trusts is they will title the property. It ends up being kind of long, but they'll title the property in the trustee's name and then also include the trust name, right? So I just used, the example there of me, right? The Blue Diamond Retirement Trust, and I'm the trustee. So that would be an example of what the titling would look like. And then all the other stuff is the same, title insurance, just make sure you're paying that from the 401k. You sign all the documents, obviously, as the trustee. And then same thing as far as delivering funds, nothing special there particular to the 401k. And same thing with the property stuff. I mean, if you don't have a property manager, again, be very careful about the work that you do on the property and documenting any third parties that are coming in and doing repairs. So if that ever comes up, you've got evidence of that. Better probably to, well, actually, let me just go back here real quick. So, obviously the rents, same thing. The renters are going to make the check payable to the trust because it's the owner of the property. And then you just deposit them right into the 401k's, checking account that you open. And then same thing with the property management firm, right? You have a contract with whoever you decide to use, and that says whatever it says. You sign the agreement as the trustee, and that's it. So that's kind of a gallop through that. I kind of ran through the 401k stuff because so much of it is just kind of, what we went through already. But that's pretty much all I have right now. I'll let you guys take a look at the contact info there. Feel free to email me, of course, Peter as well. And like I said, with the W-9 stuff, if you need a hand with that, just shoot me an email and I'll send you a sample for either structure. And obviously you can call us. We have a website. Our website is great, has a lot of information, a lot of articles and videos that go through a lot of different things about the setup and what you can do with it and what the rules are. So, but a lot of times it's nicer to actually talk to someone, right? So if you do want to talk with us, just give us a call. And that's it for me.
Awesome. A wealth of knowledge. Jordan and his family, his father is involved with the company as well, and his team is spectacular. And the great part about, two companies like Beckstone and Checkbook IRA, we're very like-minded, but we synergize and work together so well to meet the ultimate goal. I know that both of our clients are on this now and just love watching us and learning from it. But thanks for the wealth of knowledge, Jordan. I really appreciate it. And again, his contact is there. My contact will be up and my team. But I think we're going to switch over to myself and get this rolling on the Beckstone side. Thanks again, Jordan. And feel free to jump in. Sorry for the interruption.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that was actually a good point. I kind of ran through that, but it is an important point. And obviously, if any of you want to expand on that based on your situation, just call us and we'll be happy to go through it.
Absolutely. All righty. So I'm going to get started here. Again, why we're all here. Um, you know, looking at our current portfolios, how they're performing. I'm not going to get in too much about politics or about the stock market because you guys, at the end of the day, we can focus on small things that make the news today, or we can think big picture. And we're going to think big picture here. We're going to think about, what is our current portfolio doing, and are we one for one? What one for one means is our $1 creating income off that dollar itself, or is there a better way to do it? And when I show this screen here, and it was in the marketing, you guys, we can take our money, and as Jordan attests to, we can finance real estate, and we can increase our returns by two ways. Because how do we make real money in real estate? We make money on cash flow. Cash flow is king. We have to have the cash flow today, but market appreciation. And the very cool thing about us, we're based here in downtown Des Moines, Iowa. I'm literally looking at the capital of Iowa, the Capitol building, which is absolutely gorgeous if you've ever seen it, and 801 Grant, and which is the Principal Financial Group building. But at the end of the day, how can we do this? And I just want to show this real quick. Scan through here. This is us, A+ rating, as well as A+ rating here with Jordan and Checkbook IRA. Jordan and I have known each other for a very long time, and in this space, when you become specialized in it, you live, you breathe it. We do it every day, and our real focus is out here today. For those of you who are first to meet us, first to know us, maybe you've seen some articles on us, what we do, but again, we offer the ultimate IRS solution at the end of the day, because our retirement account's not active. We're not using this cash flow to go buy groceries. We're using it to really grow. And if we can exponentially grow our retirement account, what does that make life for you, your legacy, and your family down the road? Less stressful. But again, stress in real estate, they commingle, but not with us. We take that element away. Everything for us is due diligence, and where we do the due diligence, what companies we work with, just like Checkbook IRA. Here on this slide, we work with Marcus and Millichap. They're out of Encino, California, but they're one of the largest commercial brokers. Now, this presentation isn't about commercial real estate investing, but the way that Beckstone Partners buys real estate, we buy real estate in bulk, but we are constantly analyzing markets throughout the United States, which I'm going to talk about. And the pragmatic investors that we are, when we find these markets, we have to act on it, just like why you're here today. So let's talk about those markets. Let's talk about leveraging our money. Right here is just a quick screenshot. We actually are creating a new website right now that will be live next week, and we'll have all of these testimonials on there. I will give you a shortcut. If you do go to YouTube, type in Beckstone Partners, you can today access the testimonials that we do have. And of all people, well, Mary Beth is fantastic, but we have my father here, who doesn't work for Beckstone, but he does business consulting throughout the country. And he actually is we're one of his clients, his company's clients, and he does the third-party testimonials for us. The great part about it is Jim has a great knowledge of the self-directed space, of the retirement space. So the best part about that, not only is he my father and fantastic, and I love him, but Jim knows the business, and that's very important when talking to clients about what it is that their ultimate goal is. Here's some other screenshots of clients. I mean, we have clients from we have Midwest here, we have West, we have way West, Hawaii, but we have clients throughout the United States. Again, this is an opportunity. This is 100% passive investment that we're talking about today. And again, we purchase in bulk. We don't buy inexpensive, or what we like to call is a cheap house. We don't do that cheap house. We don't illustrate, hey, here's a $60,000 house. Here's this enormous return with your fingers crossed. go find a tenant, go fix it up, do this. We don't do that. And we don't do it because we've seen way too many people get burnt. We've seen way too many horror stories about people, especially with your retirement account. Let's be risk adverse. Let's not go into an investment, into a passive investment just because it's illustrated as a cheap house. Because guess what? With Beckstone Partners, your $50,000, which it's right around $50,000 is the entry fee to own real estate from us. But with $50,000, you could be owning a $130,000, $140,000 property. So if you look at it that way, on the left side, you're earning income off your cash base, $50,000 property. That's always going to be a $50,000 property that you're going to have to sell to another real estate investor. It could be in a war zone. Could look good in pictures, but could be in a war zone. The other one that we're looking at is that leverage. When I say use other people's money, a lender is other people's money. And we're going to dig into that here in a second. But the most important words, and I used to speak with Robert Kiyosaki, as a lot of people know him. I used to be in the circuit all around the country speaking with him, and actually the world. But the second most important word is leverage. So what Beckstone Partners found is that while you can leverage that property, that non-recourse loan that Jordan just spoke about is almost a ghost within our industry. It is the hardest loan to find, especially post 2008. But previous to 2008, it wasn't readily available. It was never a Fannie Mae product. It's more of a portfolio product with a lender. What that means is they use their own money to lend on these assets. That's why the loan to values aren't as extreme as you'll find on a residential owner occupied personal guaranteed mortgage. So a lot of times we have investors say, oh, I saw rates are this or that, and they're going to quote conventional interest rates on a fully documented, conventional loan. You cannot do that in your IRA. You cannot have a personal guarantee whatsoever. So the most important thing is don't do that. In every single asset that Beckstone Partners sells it's not pre-approved. It's already been approved. Nothing hits our floor until the lender has gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, priced the property, and we have that property, like Jordan said, within 48 hours, we close deals. So if you had a checkbook IRA with cash in it, and after the webinar, you call us up and you say, this is kind of my scope, this is what I believe is right for me, you could own that by the end of the week. Okay, that's just what we do because all that due diligence is done on the front end, and that's at no cost to you. None of those fees are associated. There is no points with this. And here's the other thing, ladies and gentlemen, the market that we're in, that we're so blessed to have today, our occupancy rate is 100%. And we don't sell any property that does not have a fully vetted corporate tenant in the unit. Again, every property that we sell cash flows out the gate. Within a month, you're cash flowing that property. Okay? That is called owning the asset and getting your money working for you today. Here's the other thing. With stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, you don't have a contracted return. You can't look to the future and say, hey, in 5 months, this is what my money's going to do for me. But when in real estate, we do. Everything is future-based. We can see the future in real estate. And I could sit here for hours and teach you how other ways to see the future of real estate and what we do to get there. And I can spend that time with you on a one-on-one basis, but we have a huge crowd tonight, so I'm going to keep flowing. But again, every one of our properties has a 2-year lease, corporate lease, and it is cash flowing from day one, 100% occupied. And here's the other thing. Is for those of you who are on the webinar this evening, we are going to give a 24-month discount to management from our 8%, which is actually below market, to a 4% management fee for the first 24 months. So when we were talking earlier about management, hiring a management company and things of that nature, well, at 4%, it's essentially the cost of money, right? So here's the other great part. In the non-recourse space, you're going to see interest rates of anywhere between 7.5% and 12%. You're going to see points. You're going to see all kinds of fees. With us, no fees, no points. The lender is looking at us as a volume play for them. If they can do, 100 loans every 2 months with us, they look at that as a stable, a great investor who knows what their ultimate goal is in life, and that's to grow their retirement account. Yeah, you may be in it 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. But again, these markets that we go into, you guys, it's all about owning the asset today, using those returns, and coming with us to the next market that we go into. And you're going to learn why here shortly. But again, every one of those properties has it. So, goofiest slide, if you've never seen one of our presentations in the last, I would say, 18 months, you're going to be looking at this and you're going to say, what is going on today? Well, the Panama Canal expansion, ladies and gentlemen, that is a market driver that a lot of people don't know about. So what is the Panama Canal expansion? Obviously, the Panama Canal, established in 1914, it was a shortcut to the eastern seaboard of the United States. But we've all seen those box and container ships, those huge cruise ships even, that are so large, so wide, and fit so deep into the water, they were not able to make that shortcut up over really the last 40 years to the eastern seaboard. They even named the box and container ships after the Panama Canal, simply stating that they cannot fit, and they're called post-Panamax ships. Now they're so extreme, they have two other Super and Neo Panamax ships. These ships are getting so large, so wide, and Panama finally woke up and said, hey, we need to do something about this. We need to open up the eastern seaboard. We're going to make so much money, taxes and fees on these ships that are going to the western areas like the Port of Long Beach and the Port of LA. Now, the Port of LA and the Port of Long Beach, if you look into statistics over the last 2 years, you're going to see a 20% decrease year over year, while on the eastern seaboard, you're going to see a 22% increase. And that is following right in line with what is happening to the economy today and where everything is shifting. I can speak and attest to a lot of that. What we're seeing as well is, and I'll speak really quickly on it because I know a lot of people are saying it. What about tariffs? Tariffs are actually increasing the activity at the Panama Canal because guess what? What does a shortcut do that saves money? So anywhere that there is a tariff, they're looking on this future-based shipping because shipping is sold and box and containers are sold all future-based. So what they're saying is that these tariffs are happening. They're truly going up because a lot of companies are actually using the excuse to gain their profits today when they haven't even realized the tariff. A lot of people don't know this. I can talk about that as well. But what is happening is the eastern seaboard is going to be the new hub. So where in the eastern seaboard can we talk about this? Well, the only port that's large enough and deep enough to allow for these box and container ships to port, the Neo especially, is called the Port of Virginia, right in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia. Beautiful country there. Now, being the firm that we are, we've been actually tracking the Panama Canal expansion since 2007. Now, we had a huge hit for those investors. I've actually seen some on the call today that we went to the in and around the Port of Virginia, Newport News area, the Hampton Roads area, Portsmouth, and we developed real estate and redeveloped real estate. But this was really in 2012, 12, 13, 14, 15, prior to the canal opening and really unleashing the beast per se. And what has happened in those areas is that our investors have seen double-digit increases in value over that time just because they bought at the right time. They own that asset within their portfolio because immediately when the Panama Canal expansion opened, it was delayed about a year. All this influx of traffic happened. And if you were in or live around this area, you've seen the municipalities, you've seen the roads increase, you've experienced the crazy traffic of what is happening and how they are preparing for the future, because this isn't like a 1 year, 2 year thing. This is the future. It had been since 1914, ladies and gentlemen. So the Port of Virginia is feeding off this and feeding off this and feeding on this. And there is webinars that we do have available with myself, and I'll show Chris here in a second. We deal with the Vice President of Investments of Marcus and Millichap. He's out of DC office. And of course, Washington, D.C. is right in this area. This is right in the wheelhouse. But we have done this in and around this area. And when the prices went up and continue to go up, rents naturally trail in arrears, right? So you know the future base, and you know what happens when your values go up. To acquire more real estate and build more real estate at that point in this area didn't make any sense because the values had gone up so much. So we said, how can we trail really the ancillary effects to these tertiary markets that are going to go through a huge growth, like impacted right there at the port, right? So we started to do a lot of research. We're in Washington, D.C. Chris has an entire team at the Marcus and Millichap office there. And we really started to map out, where do we want to go? Where is the traffic going? Where is the commercial development happening that we can really, really, really spin off this? And here's another exciting thing. This slide right here. This doesn't affect tariffs. This is going outbound. And this is a lot of the trade wars that you're seeing is China needs us. They need our hydrocarbon gas to make the plastics that they need. They do not have it available in China. So our exporting out of the Port of Virginia is huge as well, because you're getting a lot of this gas from that area of the country, okay? Like your West Virginias of the world, where they're creating this. They're not creating it. Earth is creating it, but they're exporting it onwards to create the plastics that are then being imported over here. So this is an economic effect that, ladies and gentlemen, you might think that, wow, I'm just talking about a residential piece of real estate. If you don't think big picture about your investment and how it's going to be affected, that's not the right way to think. Simply said, we need to see who is benefiting from this and how your portfolio and your legacy can benefit from it. So again, we have companies out here that are warehousing like crazy, because you have these box and container ships come in. They have to drop the containers off the ships, and then they have the trucks there that are taking these to destinations, right? Of course, the Northeast is very close. New York is there, Boston is there, Philadelphia is there, DC is there, Baltimore's there. Everybody's there, right? We're within 2 hours of all those major metros. And another thing that Chris talks about on his webinar with myself, again, that'll be on YouTube as well. That's the Marcus and Millichap webinar. But the economic effect of what is happening to these tertiary markets. And then this is where it brought us. It brought us to Pennsylvania, and how the importing and exporting and warehousing growth is happening right there in Pennsylvania, okay? It's all about jobs. At the end of the day, real estate is driven by jobs, especially in residential. Jobs, jobs, jobs. How can you, a real estate investor, earn returns that continue to increase? Well, it's very simple. Supply and demand, right? And supply right now in the area that we're going to talk about here shortly is unbelievable. But the amount of jobs, the supply isn't unbelievable as in there's too much. There's just not enough. And the other thing is the jobs. I'm going to show you a slide that here shortly where I pulled data from Indeed.com, where Indeed.com is basically, it's the new, if you would take 15 years ago, Monster.com and CareerBuilder.com and just mash them into one, you get Indeed. That is where employers go to post, recruit, to do everything outside of companies like LinkedIn. So what does Beckstone have to offer here in the Mid-Atlantic region? Again, this is the office right there with Marcus and Millichap. This is their company that we work. They are our broker on the acquisition side, okay? So my team on the acquisition side deals directly with them, travels out to DC, and that's right where we indicate where these markets are. And this is our lead broker out there. This is Christopher Chadwick. Chris and I have known each other coming on 9 years. We've been doing deals together, and thousands and thousands of transactions. But Christopher is a very, very smart man, and he's really a team leader there at that DC office. So I illustrate this to show that, when we buy in bulk, it's a serious transaction. We're buying for all cash. You're talking transactions of, sometimes we're buying, more than 100 properties in one transaction from one seller. So anytime you're dealing with that kind of volume, it's pretty crazy. But where we've really ended up, guys, is in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and southeast PA, which is just a straight shot east over to the port of Virginia. And what we're seeing here is and I like to add a little humor every once in a while to the slides. Look at this. This was actually pulled today. A friend of mine actually owns a data analytics company that he just recently had sold to CoreLogic. For you real estate professionals, you know who CoreLogic is. They are just a huge producer of data, especially in the real estate space. But he actually sent me these this is today. So he pulled the data, sent it over to me this morning. And in the last 6 months in Lancaster County, we're watching market trends increase of 9% per square foot over the last 6 months. Now, naturally, a real estate investor will say, well, am I going to be paying too much for property today? Did I miss the boat? You guys, it is literally at a bottom right now. Where this market is going over the next 5 years, we're going to see double-digit market appreciation. We're seeing rental rates increase. We're marking from when we closed on our acquisitions to where we are today. We've raised rents between 4 and 6%, depending on the asset. And this is only going to continue because the demand for housing is so high. And look at this slide here. I'm here in Des Moines, Iowa. Des Moines, Iowa, and Lancaster County are about the same size community overall MSA. Okay, this is the amount of jobs, and Des Moines is like the conservative, steady Eddie market. It's a fantastic real estate market, but I would never, I invest here myself, right? But I would never turn a blind eye to this. And this is simply stated. In Des Moines here, this is today, 3,900 jobs. Lancaster County, PA, 11,000. Okay? Think about that. What does that mean? What is that going to do to housing? Those jobs need filled, right? So what's happening is your major universities around this area are being recruited by companies like Target Warehousing, QVC. Hershey's is growing like crazy. And another one that's just a glorious company to be involved with is Hanover Snyder Snacks. Food allergies have impacted our family here directly. And you look at these companies, you look at the allergy trend. It's not going away. It's not, it's not a pink shirt today and it's out tomorrow. This is real life. But what's happening on an exporting basis is you have these non-perishable, they're somewhat perishable, right? Snack food and foods that are coming out that are able to be exported, though, is kind of where I'm getting at. On the shelf for 5 to 8 months, things of that nature. But that's snack food. And we have Hanover Snyder's right there. And if you've seen the marketing, if you've seen their product, if you've seen them, they used to be just a Whole Foods company, and now they're in every grocery store, and they're doing private label and continuing to grow and grow and grow. Because guess what? People do have gluten allergies in Paris. But if you go to Paris and ask for gluten-free bread at dinner, they're going to look at you and laugh. Right? They're not going to produce that dough right there in Paris. But guess what? They're going to go to other companies who is exporting the rice flour and things of that nature. In the States, well, guess what? We are a marketing powerhouse to people in Europe and overseas. And guess what? People follow our trends, and that being, food trends as well. People who don't have celiac are eating gluten-free. I've done it, and a lot of other people have. So we're looking at 3 times the amount of jobs. Now, I find this photo of Jake Gyllenhaal extremely funny. And the reason I put it there is look at the Lancaster County demographics. Look at the unemployment rate, ladies and gentlemen. This was pulled today. Who wants, and I love speaking to rooms when I can see people, But if you could see this statistical data, and then I could ask the question, who wants to be a real estate investor in a job market that has an unemployment rate that's skewing out at zero? And that you just saw the slide before. You can go do your own due diligence, and I urge you to, because this stuff is truly happening. And I highly advise go to YouTube and watch the Marcus Millichap video where Chris and his team can attest to this is happening as well. But this is just pure data pulled. And again, feeding off major metros, feeding off Philly, feeding off New York, feeding off Baltimore, all these huge, huge areas of the country that are major metros that have industry are looking to places that's less expensive like Lancaster County to set up shop, bring in millennials. They're getting paid $50,000-$60,000 a year, because guess what? $50,000-$60,000 a year in New York City, you're still living on breadcrumbs and ramen noodles. But here in Philadelphia, and not Philadelphia, excuse me, in Lancaster County, you can have a beautiful home that I'm going to show you here in a second that's appreciating. But guess what? There's all kinds of exit strategies that we have built in as well that I can discuss. And again, I'm just hitting this at 10,000 feet, ladies and gentlemen, as quick as possible. But again, every month you're going to get a management statement emailed to you. Every month you're going to get your net deposit sent to you. And again, this is kind of an illustration of the management company we have. It's called East King Management, and East King will send you these statements, and they'll also be sending you your monthly cash flow to your IRS compliant bank account. And we get this question all the time. What if I have $100,000 in my retirement account, but I have cash on hand, I have equity in a house here? Can I do business with Beckstone outside of my retirement account as well? And absolutely, we have clients do it all the time because they say, you know what, I could use the cash flow. I have a contracted return here for my active income. I would love it. I would love to pick up some depreciation. I would love to have that with my active money. And then I would love to set it and forget it in my retirement account because you guys have done such a fantastic job, and I see it. I see it. And we call those clients, it's kind of an in-house special. We call it inside outside. So you're doing one property or two property inside your retirement account, one property, two property, or whatever it is outside. Another thing I will hit on real quick is partnering. There is the ability to partner with your own IRA, your spouse, and Jordan can attest to, and you can send an email. Hey, is this, does this descent work for me if you're going to partner? Just think about it like a tree, though. No up and down, right? No up and down. I can't partner, up and down, but I can partner with my brother here, Kevin, who some of you will meet. Kevin is fantastic, and he heads up our sales team here in Des Moines. But that being said, I'm going to get into what we have to offer because I get that all the time. Hey, Tim, speed up. I want to see what you guys have to offer. And it's almost like walking through the perfume section of the store before you get to the clothing that you need. All right, so Beckstone Partners inventory. This is what our inventory looks like. This is one of our assets that you could own by the end of the week. If you had your funds in your checkbook IRA, you wanted to purchase. This is a 2014 build. Okay, we came in, we bought this development. I won't go through the long story of how we acquired it, but these are fee simple townhomes right here in Lancaster County. They're right on the river. They're amazing, amazing, amazing. And what you have surrounded there is Amish country. This is Dutch country, right? So you have the farmers here. You have beautiful community. Look at the trees. Look at the beautifulness of it. I mean, this is just how the country looks out there. But if you look on the far north side of this, you're going to see a lot of warehousing, guys. You see that? Up in the upper right-hand corner, warehousing, warehousing, warehousing. Demand, demand, demand. You are getting what I call a newer construction townhome, and you're still getting it for below replacement cost today. So you're walking in with equity. What we sell it at is what the lender deems the price. There is walk-in equity, cash flow from day one, and then these have heavy market appreciation. Okay, so you could own one of these properties within your retirement account with under $100,000. Okay, you could own these today, and these are unbelievable. And the other assets that we do have, I'm going to highlight them, but here's a site map. You already saw a more beautiful one, but the way that I think this is more beautiful to me. Okay, so look at this absorption rates and the amount of inventory. You know, we're this all of this, and this is data collected from CoStar, another analytics company that we work with. Some of you real estate professionals will know. But what we're seeing is rents rising, we're seeing demand increase, but we're not seeing a lot of supply into the market. And that's not due to anything else outside of available land to develop. It is a longer process in Pennsylvania to develop. And at the end of the day, this has kind of come out of nowhere. It was a little unexpected and so fast in this area of the country. But when any company sees, they're not saying, if I'm selling something for $100 today, importing it through the Port of LA or Port of Long Beach, and making X profit. If I do it from the East Coast and come up through the Panama Canal and get it here and save, let's say, 5%, they're not going to then go sell it for $95. That 5% is going in their pocket. And companies are going wild about the expansion. So much so, ladies and gentlemen, there is a bill on the floor to have a second lane dredged in the Port of Virginia. It's being supported by both sides. It's a $4 billion bill. That's going to take probably a good 6 to 7 years. But imagine, within that time period, we could buy and sell in here and actually buy again. And we're looking to develop as well. But today's prices aren't going to be tomorrow's prices. It's where do you catch wind and when do you actually own this asset? Or I guess I almost said business, but at the end of the day, it is, right? This is one of our duplex properties that we have. We have duplexes. We have single-family homes got rehabbed. This area of the country, though, has a lot of nostalgia. We actually have, I think, one property left in Gettysburg. Funny joke that I made, and nobody's going to laugh, is we own a Gettysburg address. So some people may laugh, some may not, but that's okay. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, this property, these properties, this is what you're going to get with us. You're going to get fully rehab properties, or you're going to get newer construction properties that have been fully vetted by a third-party lender that has gone in, and they're willing to lend on the property on its own merit, right? The buck stops at the property. There's no personal guarantee. And back to, if you're going to do it outside an IRA, do you have to go through the process of due diligence on yourself? You do not. There's no credit checks. Nothing goes under credit. You could be a foreign national. As long as your funds are here in the United States and you show us a statement, I can get you approved. If it's prior to 5 o'clock, I can get it done in the same day. Okay, because they've already vetted the property. They've already done their due diligence on the property. So what we're talking about, and in numbers I don't get in specifically because they are different on every property. Returns are different on, in and around the property. Some will make more in market appreciation and be a little less heavy on the cash flow, but a little more conservative. Some will be a little more aggressive, but within the scope of everything, you're looking at returns that you're not going to get in the stock market, or you could, but then what happens the next day, right? We don't know. There's too much hostility right now, and there's too much craziness going on. And at the end of the day, where's the mean, right? Because when we're looking at real estate investing, I think it's very important to look at the mean, right? What is happening? Where all the meat and potatoes that are going on in the media, we have 79 different ways to tell you what's happening in the world today. You know what? I want my retirement, everything that I've saved up for my family, for my legacy. I want it here, and I want to know what's going to happen, but I don't want to have to think about it on a daily basis. I don't need that stress. That's our kind of investor. We want a person that wants to grow their net worth time in, time out, using other people's money. And when we say using other people's money, we talk about the lender, but think about this as well. You're using other people's money from our due diligence, from our lenders' due diligence. Our time is money as well. Their time is money. Our broker's time is money. All of our time is money, and you are using it, but we want you to have the ultimate solution. And that ultimate solution does not start until you own the property. We are not real estate brokers. We're not mortgage brokers. We don't claim to be any of these things. We are professional real estate investors that have the ability to buy in bulk, pass on the savings to you, and be able to package up the extraordinary deal. Like Jordan did say, clients are coming back and saying, we want more. We want to learn more about this. And that's why our relationship, and the same thing goes for us and Jordan. We have clients come in all the time and, pass them off to Jordan and his team. If you don't have a self-directed IRA, we'll get it. Jordan and his team will get you set up. And here's another thing. Outside of that 4% management fee, with our partnership with Jordan, if you do become a client of Beckstone, okay, and this doesn't matter if you set up a new one today, or if you already set a checkbook IRA up with Jordan and his team, or even if maybe you just happen to inquire one day on one of our websites and you just joined us and maybe you set up a solo K or checkbook IRA elsewhere, whatever it is, or you're buying custodially, we will credit you for the cost of setting that up, future-based or past-based. Again, Beckstone Partners, and that's only on if you purchase the property from us. Of course, that would be called doing business with us, and then we can give you that credit for that. So, that being said, I know it was a little long-winded. I tried to cruise. That's actually cruising for me, ladies and gentlemen. You can reach us here, 515-414-8794. This is actually my direct email, bt@beckstonepartners.com. I'd also like to, another good email to have is ki@beckstonepartners.com. Again, ki or info@. And we are right here in Des Moines, downtown Des Moines. If you ever want to cruise by, we're not too far from the airport. We have clients flying all the time, but at the end of the day, most of our clients, it's a phone conversation. If you want to have a conversation over video, via the computer, we can do that as well. We're open to helping you guys out at any time. We're not a 9 to 5 operation. We take phone calls on Saturday morning, Sunday nights. We understand this is alternative, and we do understand that, when you're busy at work or busy during the week or busy with the kids or whatever you're doing, that sometimes alternatives come second, third, fourth place, and we're patient. We can work with you. I do highly advise, though, after this webinar here in a couple of seconds, if you want to make an appointment, because we have so many people on this webinar, and I haven't seen this many people on a webinar in a long time, we can set that time up for you, calendared up, and work with you on time and get that all taken care of. So email myself. You might get a forward on or a couple other people on email in response, but what we're going to do is make it happen for you. So if you want to go watch those testimonials, just go to YouTube, type in Beckstone Partners testimonial, and boom, some of those will show up. And again, we'll have a new updated website, but again, our website's just beckstonepartners.com. So that being said, Jordan, are you still with me?
Yep, still here.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you for your time. Thank everyone else for their time. You guys, I'd love to say fantastic to meet you, and I'm sure I will here soon. So Jordan will be in touch, and have a great night.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Night, everybody.
Anytime. Good night. Bye-bye.